Hey guys, Sean here. When it comes to the Great Reset, you probably heard of the phrase, you will own nothing and be happy. And the first thing you will imagine is a bunch of elites sitting together, laughing and planning the domination of the world, discussing how they are all going to reduce us to slaves. Plus, this statement from Ida Auken, a Danish politician involved in the initiative, is just fueling the uproar, and by just reading it, I'm getting flashbacks from George Orwell's dystopian 1984. In fact, when I first read her Forbes article that explicitly states, I don't own anything, I don't own a car, I don't own a house, I don't own any appliances or any clothes, I was alarmed. Is the big agenda really about turning us into modern serfs where the overlords will take everything we have, even our underwear? Now, I've done a lot of research into this, and I have to say, I cannot find any concrete evidence or statements about a big conspiracy to enslave us all. Now, I've dug through pages upon pages of the Great Reset agenda online and sat through some of the most boring videos in the world by Klaus Schwab, the engineer of the whole thing. And from what I can gather, they're talking about making things more equal, how we should be moving towards green energy, and saving the environment. Generally positive stuff. But this has been wrapped up in a marketing campaign so bad it makes every participant look like a James Bond villain. Now, what I want to talk about is something based on fact, and it's more important than focusing on the failed product of a bunch of rich people who can't express themselves properly. And this is what I call the great wealth transfer. This is where a real shift in money is already happening, and how the world is really going to be split into two camps. It'll be people with assets and people without assets, and if you're on the wrong side, you will own nothing and be very unhappy. Now, a report by the World Economic Forum shows that the richest 10% of the people own 76% of the wealth in the world, and in America alone, this is getting worse. Ever since the Fed started printing money in 2008, we can see the wealth of the top 1%, represented by the blue line, just rise and shoot up, especially during 2020. They now own more of the pie. But the most disturbing part is the grey line, which represents the middle class is going down. The middle class is declining in wealth. The rich are getting richer, the middle class is getting decimated, and the poor stay poor. Frankly, this is nothing new. We already know that the rich have access to more opportunities, and with more money, they can take risks and access investments the majority of us just can't. But what I want to do here is to zoom into how the money is actually distributed, and you'll quickly understand why the rich just keeps getting richer. It's not voodoo or some big conspiracy, but it's how they handle their money. We can see that the top 1% holds more stocks, they have less debt, and they don't believe in pensions, right? They invest themselves. They are investing in assets because remember that when you buy stocks, you are buying a piece of company that generates profits and produces income. But the bottom 99%'s wealth is mostly tied to real estate and is in a lot of debt because of it. And this is where I'm going to go Robert Kiyosaki, rich dad, poor dad for a minute. The big reason why it's near impossible to catch up the rich, barring them doing really something stupid, is because they buy assets that scale with inflation and benefit from the increased demand driven by inflation. Stocks and shares are just one example, and we need to dive a little deeper and follow the money. The number one reason why we are all bleeding wealth is inflation at 8.5% today. We are literally seeing our purchasing power evaporate away. But this doesn't just magically disappear into thin air. Our loss of purchasing power actually flows into the pockets of people who have assets, real tangible things that can't be printed into oblivion by the Federal Reserve. But to understand better, let's take a look at what our friendly neighborhood billionaires are investing in. So Bill Gates, the Microsoft wonder boy, is buying up farmland. In fact, he has accumulated more than 260,000 acres across America and is the largest private farmland owner in the US. And it's really easy to understand why. Farmland has intrinsic value, and the food you cultivate there, whether it's potatoes, carrots, or soybeans, they all produce inflation-proof income. So the next time your food prices increase, chances are some of those extra dollars are flowing to Bill Gates. Next, let's talk about Elon Musk, right? The solar-powered future king of Mars has bought Twitter, and you might be wondering, what does this have to do with everything, right? As much as Elon Musk is snapping up the company to fight for free speech, he is actually securing his 89 million followers and accessing nearly 230 million users, right? Now, all these are potential Tesla customers, and those are the real assets in the Twitter acquisition, the users. He is spending money to access unlimited advertising, right? But what about the old money, the elite of the elites? Now let's talk about the Rothschilds. And if you haven't heard about them, they are one of the oldest banking families in Europe and are rumored to be even richer than the Saudi royals. Now, Lord Rothschild himself, back in 2016, has come out to state that he was uncertain about the greatest experiment in monetary policy and how it is impossible to predict the unintended consequences of very low interest rates. Basically, he's worried about money printing and inflation, and fast forward to today, we all know that this has come true. And because of this, he bought up tons of gold, the oldest asset known to man. Now, the underlying lesson here is that the rich are buying up tangible stuff, farmland, companies, and precious metals. They understand the need to get out of cash and accumulate the right type of assets before inflation eats away at it. But what about you and me? Can we make inflation work for us? I believe we all can, and it's all about creating that powerful positive spiral that will help us get richer and richer. Remember that most billionaires and rich people are self-made, and that means the rule that applies to you and me also applied to them at one point. Now, our job is to create a portfolio of investments that will take advantage of inflation and make it our ally, right? Sooner or later, the Fed will start printing money again and loosen its monetary policy, and that will mean soaring inflation. It is very possible that we could go above 8.5% down the road the next time the Fed reinflates the bubble, right? And the key is to move ourselves from savers into asset owners, and as inflation starts to price people out, they will become your future customers and their purchasing power will flow to you. You know, I'm not here to debate whether this is good or bad, but it is the way the system is set up. If you control the means of production, you will benefit from price increases. I think the first step is to start hedging ourselves against inflation. Right now, there are a lot of supply issues in the economy. Russia and Ukraine are at war, and too much money has been printed. It is likely inflation won't slow down much, and as long as there are negative real interest rates, we need to invest. For most of us watching this, it will likely be gold. It has protected purchasing power for thousands of years and have annualized around 10.5% for the last 50 years. Now, for many others, myself included, investing in the broader stock market, the S&P 500, is also a good long-term hedge against inflation. It has averaged around 11% per annum over the last 50 years as well. And if we throw in dividends, the gain is even more. I personally hold both, right? With the S&P 500, I can gain dividends, and the knee-jerk reaction of most people will be to head to equities, so that will help bolster the price as well. But with gold, I get a safe haven asset that has no counterparty risk, has a proven track record longer than the stock market, and isn't dependent on a specific economy growing. Now, the second step is to increase our income, but specifically with new income streams that scale with inflation, right? And when I mean scale with inflation, I'm talking about having the ability to increase your prices by at least 10% every single year. And that's why I love side hustles, and I believe the fastest way to bring in some immediate income are with them. Now, if you're in the trades like an electrician, plumber, or even mechanic, you can freelance your way to six figures rather fast. And I have literally seen a friend go from a 50 grand day job to $100,000 freelancing as an electrician in just 1 year, right? Now, these are vocations that really can't be replaced with robots anytime soon, and people will have to pay what you charge. Or if you're crazy as me, you can even give YouTube a try as a side hustle, and that's because the price of ads here will only increase as inflation picks up. And the final step is to own all-weather assets that other people can't live without, and that is food and shelter, and in investment speak, that means farmland and real estate. Now, home and land prices have always been trending up, especially after money printing became the norm from 2008 onwards, and that's because they are tangible hard assets that combine the best of both worlds, right? They're outside of the financial system, they can produce income, and unless we are in a state of emergency or war, you own them forever. But the big challenge is buying acres of land or family home to rent out isn't really easy, right? The initial threshold of the down payment is high, and that's why we need the first two steps. And that's why the rich get richer. The sheer amount of money they get from their business income, or dividends allows them to directly buy up land and property in cash. But of course, there are many ways to accelerate this. If you own a business, you can scale other people's time to get richer faster, or if you're building the next startup unicorn, then you make the rules and you're probably laughing at this video by now. But whatever the case, we need to position ourselves to benefit from this wealth transfer. But more importantly, you need to find and be part of a community that you can trust and are dedicated to building wealth. Now, the big problem in society today is that we are all fed up with so many lies from people out there to get your money. Do you notice how rich people all love to say the same phrase, money doesn't make you happy? Now, no one is stupid enough to believe that money can buy happiness, but the real agenda, at least I believe, is to discourage people from trying to climb that ladder. Who wants competition, right? And the phrase YOLO, you only live once. Oh my god, that phrase is one of the worst phrases I've ever heard in my life. That single phrase has bred a generation of Robin Hood investors armed with their steamy checks, buying ticker symbols being pumped by Wall Street bets. Now, obviously, this channel is biased towards precious metals, but gold and silver is just one way. Identifying and investing in profitable companies is another, and becoming an evil landlord is even better. Remember that mainstream information is here to pacify the masses and not here to help make you rich or financially free. Only you can do it yourself. I really believe the Great Reset isn't something we should worry about because the great wealth transfers are already happening under our noses. And very soon the world will be split into the people with assets and people who have to be their customers. This will be the modern serfdom. Now, I believe there isn't going to be a big single reset, but a gradual shift and wealth transfer that has been happening for a long time since we left the gold standard. But with all this money printing going on, especially since 2008, assets are being bought up fast by people who first get the money. And the game now is all about becoming real asset owners and making inflation work for you. I think we can all make it if we are wise with our money and understand the need to accumulate assets while there's still time. Now, this isn't a feel-good video, but this is the reality of how the world is and where we are progressing towards. Sure, you can choose to own nothing and try to be happy, but in reality, you better own something or you'll be really unhappy. So let me know what you think. Are we really moving towards a kind of modern serfdom, or is everything hunky-dory and what I'm saying false? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for more gold, silver and finance videos. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you soon.